In 2017, Hurricane Harvey killed 36 people in Houston and caused $125 billion in damage. The second costliest natural disaster in American history. 25% of those flooded homes were not inside FEMA's designated flood zones. People had no warning, no legal reason to give them one. Drive through Manchester, a Houston neighborhood on the Ship Channel. You'll find a children's playground sitting 150 feet from crude oil storage tanks. Legal, permitted, no violation on record. Houston is the only major American city with no zoning code. Not a weak one, not an outdated one, none. The fourth largest city in America, built for 6 million people, without a single land use law. The floods, the refineries next to schools, the heat, the highways cutting through the poorest blocks. None of it is accidental. None of it is geography. It was chosen, over and over again. And somebody always profited from that choice. Houston does not flood occasionally. It floods structurally. Between 2015 and 2017 alone, Harris County experienced 5 federally declared flood disasters. Not 5 in a century. 5 in 2 years. The tax day floods of April 2016 dropped 17 inches of rain in under 12 hours. The Memorial Day floods of May 2015 killed 8 people and caused $2 billion in damage. Then, Harvey arrived in August 2017 and deposited 60 inches in 6 days. The highest rainfall total ever recorded from a single storm in United States history. Meteorologists call events like Harvey 500-year floods. Harris County now averages a 500-year flood event roughly every 2 years. The label has stopped meaning anything. A 2018 Texas A&M University study traced why. Between 1992 and 2010, Houston's impervious surface coverage, roads, rooftops, parking lots, every surface that repels water instead of absorbing it, grew by 25%. The city paved itself faster than any drainage infrastructure could follow. Rain that once soaked into undeveloped prairie now runs straight into bayous that were sized for a smaller city. FEMA's maps could not keep pace with any of it. After Harvey, FEMA Region 6 publicly acknowledged that its flood maps were approximately 40% inaccurate for Harris County. Entire neighborhoods that had flooded repeatedly for years were still officially classified as low risk on the maps that homebuyers, mortgage lenders, and insurance agents were relying on. The damage goes beyond water. Houston exceeds EPA ozone standards more days per year than Los Angeles. Downtown Houston registers 6 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than surrounding suburban areas, among the sharpest urban heat island differentials in the country, according to NOAA's 2022 urban heat monitoring data. This is not one catastrophic storm, not a geography problem, not an infrastructure funding gap. The failures repeat on schedule. They were measured, documented, and predicted in official reports, and every one of them points back toward a single structural decision that predates every disaster on this list. The instinct is to blame the terrain. Houston is flat. The soil is clay-heavy. The bayous are narrow and shallow. Rain pools instead of draining. That explanation is true. It is also not sufficient. Amsterdam sits below sea level. It manages flooding through engineered water systems and disciplined land use controls. Rotterdam, also below sea level, has built underground water storage plazas and stormwater retention networks that have made it an internationally studied flood management model. Neither city permits residential development on land specifically designated to hold floodwater. Houston did. After World War II, the Army Corps of Engineers constructed 2 large flood control reservoirs west of the city, Addicks Reservoir and Barker Reservoir. Both were built explicitly to capture storm overflow and protect downtown from catastrophic inundation. The Corps' own 1945 construction documents describe both reservoir pools as designated flood detention areas, land meant to absorb water during major rain events. Harris County sold that land for residential development anyway. By 2017, more than 14,000 homes had been built inside the Addicks and Barker reservoir pools. Buyers had no reliable way of discovering what they were purchasing. No zoning code prohibited the development. No county ordinance blocked it. Developers acquired the cheapest available land, built homes at market rates, and sold them to families who trusted that someone with authority had verified the ground was safe. The system Houston uses as a substitute for zoning is codified under Chapter 214 of the Texas Local Government Code. It is a deed restriction mechanism, and it is entirely resident enforced. The city cannot act unless 51% of a neighborhood's property owners petition to trigger enforcement. In neighborhoods with high renter populations, absentee landlords, or households under financial stress, that threshold never materializes. A crude oil tank farm next to a school, homes built inside a federal flood reservoir. Both are entirely legal. Both are completely routine. Pamela Porter's family has lived in Kashmere Gardens, a historically black neighborhood in northeast Houston, for 5 generations. The neighborhood sits inside the Barker Reservoir flood pool. Porter's home flooded in 1979. It flooded in 2001. It flooded during the Memorial Day storm of 2015. It flooded in the tax day event of 2016. Each time, the damage was repaired. Each time, the family stayed, because Kashmere Gardens was home, and because nothing in any document they could access suggested the land beneath them had been legally designated to fill with water. On August 28, 2017, the Army Corps of Engineers began a controlled release from Barker Reservoir to prevent catastrophic overflow into downtown Houston. There was no mandatory public notification, no siren system, no required phone alert. Kashmere Gardens was not inside a federally designated special flood hazard area, which meant flood insurance was not required under federal mortgage rules, and many residents had none. The water rose fast, not from rain, from a federal release. For Porter, it was the 5th flood. The Corps had 1945 documentation showing the land was engineered to hold water. Harris County had collected property taxes on Kashmere Gardens homes for decades. No law required either institution to warn the residents that their homes would be inundated by a controlled government action. In 2017, thousands of reservoir area residents filed suit in the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. The case was captioned, "In Re-Upstream Addicks and Barker, Texas Flood Control Reservoirs." In 2022, the court ruled the Army Corps of Engineers liable for an unconstitutional Fifth Amendment taking of private property. Damages were awarded. The government built a reservoir. It permitted homes inside that reservoir. It collected property taxes on those homes for 7 decades. It then flooded the homes deliberately and classified the event as a natural disaster. Pamela Porter was not unlucky. She was inside a legal arrangement she had never been informed she had entered. Houston has voted on zoning 3 times. In 1948, a proposed zoning ordinance went before Houston voters. It failed. In 1962, the city tried again. It failed again. In 1993, the question appeared on the ballot for the 3rd time. It lost again. The 1993 campaign has the clearest documentation. The Houston Property Rights Association organized and led the opposition. The Houston Association of Realtors was among its primary financial backers. The public argument was liberty, property rights, the right of owners to use their land without government interference. The structural consequence was that Houston developers retained full legal authority to build any land use adjacent to any other. with no separation requirements, no buffer obligations, and no city government power to intervene. The petrochemical industry had a direct financial reason to support that outcome. Zoning codes in comparable cities require industrial buffer zones, mandatory minimum distances between refineries, chemical storage facilities, and residential areas. In Houston, those distances do not exist in law. Manchester, Harrisburg, and Pleasantville, predominantly Black and Latino neighborhoods, situated directly downwind from facilities along the Houston Ship Channel, received no mandated separation. Not because anyone missed them on a map, because no ordinance creating that separation had ever been passed. The flood structure is equally deliberate. Harris County carried no stormwater detention requirements for residential subdivisions until the Harris County Flood Control District enacted new standards that took effect in April 2019. Every subdivision built before that date, which accounts for virtually all of Houston's existing built environment, was constructed under zero obligation to retain stormwater on site. Developers could build on flood-prone land, skip detention infrastructure entirely, and sell homes at full market rates. The downstream cost, the flooded streets, the overwhelmed bayous, the ruined interiors in lower-lying blocks, was absorbed by existing residents, or by no one legally accountable for it. This is not an absence of policy. It is a specific transfer of cost. The financial burden of managing water was offloaded, legally and deliberately, from the people who generated it onto the people who had the least capacity to protect themselves from it. That is the first reversal. Houston's no zoning arrangement was not born from culture, accident, or ideology. It was campaigned for, funded, and won 3 consecutive times at the polls. Someone paid for the campaigns. Someone benefited from each win. The warnings did not begin with Harvey. In 1935, Houston's own city engineer submitted an internal report, warning that the bayou drainage network was already insufficient to handle the projected growth of the city. The report was filed. The development continued. In 1972, an Army Corps of Engineers internal assessment documented the growing risk of residential encroachment into the Addicks and Barker reservoir pools. The assessment was noted. Development continued. In 2009, the Harris County Flood Control District completed a study finding that more than 30% of Harris County faced elevated flood risk directly attributable to impervious surface expansion. The study was published internally. Development continued. In 2015, the Memorial Day floods triggered a Harris County grand jury investigation. The grand jury issued its report in 2016. It warned explicitly of catastrophic flood potential should a major storm strike. It named specific infrastructure vulnerabilities. It identified specific communities at risk. Harvey arrived 15 months later. FEMA's community rating system had already registered the inadequacy. Under the National Flood Insurance Program's rating framework, Houston holds a Class 5 score, a midpoint grade that qualifies policyholders for flood insurance discounts of only 25%. A Class 5 reflects documented deficiencies in a community's floodplain management practices. Houston maintained that classification for years, while its population and impervious surface coverage expanded simultaneously. The legal architecture that insulated Harris County from accountability was also in place. Texas Water Code Section 11.086 limits local government liability for flood damage in terms that have effectively prevented Harris County from being held legally responsible for drainage failures. It had the documented capacity to anticipate. Every warning generated a study. Every study generated a report. Every report was filed. The construction permits kept moving because the legal structure made development profitable and made accountability diffuse enough that no single institution bore the cost of allowing it. What this timeline describes is not negligence in the conventional sense. It is a sequence of known risks, preserved by legal immunity on one side and economic incentive on the other, each reinforcing the next decade after decade after decade. After Harvey, Harris County moved faster than it had in any prior decade. In August 2018, Houston area voters approved a $2.5 billion flood control bond measure. The Harris County Flood Control District launched systematic property buyouts, targeting the addresses with the highest documented flood exposure. By 2023, more than 3,000 at-risk properties had been acquired, structures demolished, and land returned to something closer to its pre-development absorption function. The Flood Control District simultaneously enacted the new development detention standards. Beginning April 2019, all new subdivisions in Harris County were required to include on-site stormwater retention. What had been legally optional for more than 70 years became mandatory. FEMA updated its advisory flood maps for Harris County in 2020, incorporating post-Harvey hydrological modeling to reclassify tens of thousands of parcels that prior maps had misclassified as low risk. These are real changes. The buyout program worked for the families who participated. The detention rules will reduce runoff from future construction. The updated maps give more accurate risk information to buyers and lenders. Now here is the second reversal. In 2021, the Rice University Kinder Institute for Urban Research published an analysis of federal Harvey Recovery Grant distribution. The study examined community development block grant disaster. Recovery funds dispersed through the Texas General Land Office. The findings were unambiguous. Recovery money went disproportionately to white, higher-income homeowners. Renters, who constituted the majority of households in many of the lowest-lying, hardest-hit flood zones, received almost nothing from the program. Black and Latino neighborhoods that bore the greatest flood exposure under Houston's no-zoning arrangement received disproportionately less under the post-Harvey relief structure. The communities placed at greatest physical risk by the political decisions of 1948, 1962, and 1993 were placed at a compounding disadvantage in the recovery from the disaster those decisions had made inevitable. The fix was real. The fix also revealed, by contrast, exactly how deep and how consistent the underlying structure had always been. Go back to the beginning. A flooded street in Kashmir Gardens, crude oil tanks visible from a schoolyard in Manchester, a house built inside a federal reservoir, taxed and sold as though the soil beneath it were simply real estate. What does it look now? Not bad geography, not an underfunded city too stretched to design its way out of trouble. Houston is the fourth largest city in the United States. It is the center of the global petroleum industry. It has had every financial and technical resource necessary to build a coherent, livable city since at least the middle of the 20th century. It had 3 elections instead. In 1948, in 1962, and in 1993, the political and industry interests that profited from a city without land use rules ran organized campaigns, spent money, and won. The refineries went next to the schools. The homes went inside the reservoirs. The detention requirements waited until April 2019. The flood maps were 40% wrong. The recovery grants followed the existing hierarchy. Pamela Porter flooded 5 times on land a federal agency had marked as a water holding basin before she was born. The floods are not natural disasters in any meaningful sense. They are the accumulated physical consequence of 3 referendum defeats, 70 years of permitted reservoir development, and 0 stormwater retention requirements for most of the buildings currently standing in Harris County. Houston is not the poorest designed city in America because it lacked the money or the expertise to build something better. It is the poorest designed city because the interests that benefited from poor design had enough money and enough political organization to keep winning. while the people who paid the cost of poor design received floodwater instead of representation. The visible problem is not a flaw. It is a record. Every flooded street, every tank farm beside a school, every house inside a reservoir is the physical expression of a specific set of choices, written in concrete and water, and 80 years of compound interest on a decision that was never reversed.